my brother, sister, or me, or his grandchildren. You had at least met my father in passing, and maybe just in passing, because sometimes he would relate many of those stories just in passing. He would tell people that he still had a great friendship with my mother, and that Roseanne was his fiancée. And sometimes he'd tell you all these things more than once. Stanley Albert Coolidge was born in San Francisco, California on May 17, 1939 to Edith Lewis and Stanley Coolidge Sr. He was an only child. His parents separated when he was a young boy and his mother moved to New Jersey. He has two half-brothers still living in New Jersey. He had adventures as a young boy on Fisherman's Wharf, at the paper box company in Emeryville, and in and around San Francisco. He also endured the hardship of times of a stepmother who was unusually cruel. He attended high school at a Catholic seminary, going without the usual high school experience. He then attended the University of California, Berkeley. I always felt before it was super liberal. Sorry, Mom. With a degree in English in 1961, then attended law school, also at Berkeley, in Bolt Hall, graduating in 1964, having made law review, and begun to practice as an attorney in 1965. He met and married my mother, Constance Bayfrick, in college, and they married in 1961. And she worked while he went to school. They moved to West Los Angeles in 1965 with him taking a job at a very large law firm, Lawler, Felix, and Hall. Later, they moved to the Valley, as those LA folks call it, buying their first home in Tarzana. Friendship with a law school friend, and the need for my mother to be closer to family in the Bay Area after her father died, and being done with the LA scene brought the couple to Marysville in 1966. They bought land in Loma Rica in 1967. He became a reserve sheriff's deputy for the Yuba County Sheriff's Department once they moved to the Hills, and continued to serve in this position until 1974 when his partner, Don Brown, was killed in the line of duty on a night my father was not with him. Shortly after, he decided to stay strictly to being an attorney as his law practice was growing. In 1966, they built my childhood home, moving from a small house on the back of the property to a larger 3-story house, at which he and Roseanne both perished on October 9th. Dad continued his law practice in the Yuba Sutter area and eventually, in partnership with Lyle Giese, built the brick office building, which stands just literally down the street. If you go down to Butte House in Stabler, it's there on the corner. That was his longtime office. In the 80s, my father was a part owner, and many probably don't know this, in All Right Markets, which owned and operated 11 different stores in the Yuba Sutter area, including All Right Value King, which was located in the old ice skating rink in Marysville. My parents remained in Loma Rica until they divorced in '97, with Dad keeping the large home and living there and Mom moving to Lincoln. They remained close friends and talked very often. Dad and Roseanne found each other a few years later and he felt deeply in love with her, proposing to her one very memorable Thanksgiving. I think Roseanne was more shocked than anyone else, to be honest. Roseanne visited Dad often, and the couple had a very deep and close relationship for more than 15 years, and he always enjoyed telling people that she was his fiancée. So I'm telling you more than twice too. Throughout his life, Dad participated in countless community events. His favorite, though, definitely, was playing Judge Stephen J. Field during the Beckwith trial reenactment. From the Americana Corvette Club showing off their cars, he had a 76th anniversary that he loved to display throughout the Yuba Sutter area. The dog shows with my mother in the 1960s. My father loved to be involved and be around people. I would have never told you that he liked to socialize and be around groups of people. In fact, he would have probably emphatically denied it. He often told people he disliked large crowds, but somehow, this was the same guy who I always managed to see at every single event I put on. And he was certainly missed this last weekend on my last show, but Dad would always come to my events, and I just loved seeing him there. And it was such a nice surprise when he showed up and walked through. On many trips to New Jersey I took with Dad to visit his mother, who passed away a few years ago, he seemed to make friends everywhere we went. Everywhere. On the plane, in line for the taxi cab, at the rental car counter, and yes, even going through security. He really did. My father loved to meet new people and hear their stories and share his. It also didn't matter who they were, what they look like, or their station in life. The biggest change in my father's life was when he found his love for Harleys. Dad had always ridden a motorcycle, but he didn't have a Harley until I was about 8 years old. I remember one of the first weekends he took up on a motorcycle trip with some friends. He came by my little league practice when he returned and shouted for me to come over and see him. I recognized the voice, but not the person shouting. And I hesitantly headed across the playground until I met this strange man with my father's voice. I say strange because the first time in my life my father had a beard. And I didn't recognize him from afar. I did his voice, but from that day forward I never saw him clean shaven again. It was through the club that he met Roseanne. It was through the club that he had countless memorable experiences. And it was through the club that he had made friends for life. I remember one day I used to work for my dad and run errands for him. And he was particularly discouraged about being an attorney that day. And as chance would have it, I actually did a list of all of his clients just prior. And they were everything that we had in the filing room and also a storage unit. And I handed him the list of all his clients. I said, Dad, these are all the people that you helped. And he looked at them and kind of shed a tear, and he realized that because he was that kind of attorney, he was the kind of attorney who truly helped people. Sometimes helped people for less money, sometimes helped people just because the cause was right, and sometimes helped people just because they were friends. Beyond his amazing legal career, his impressive educational background, and his community spirit, there were many skills he had that many would not consider important. But there were skills who made him exactly who he was. He had a low, languishing growl that would let you know right away he didn't like what you did. I'm not even going to try it. My mom will remember this one. He was able to use his belt as a whip to shred a newspaper while you were reading it. And he would do it on quite a few occasions. My mom would be reading the newspaper and the newspaper would split in half. Dad somehow got a kick out of that. He was able to speak with complete fluentness, both fake Japanese and Chinese. Anytime you want, you could just switch right over. And it almost sounded real. In my childhood, his fingers turned into piercing arrows, or what we call them in the family, arrows. Nothing wrong with it. That's as everybody else. And they hurt as much going in as they did going out. So you never wanted them pulled out, you always wanted them to pull out either side. That's all right. It happens. He was a master of puppets, and he often gave puppet shows, but by far his favorite was Animal from the Muppet Show, which had winking eyebrows and giant teeth, and it would often latch onto your arm. It latched on 8 more than once. He was capable of lengthening his arm, and I'm not sure exactly how he did it, but I swear it made it look like it would grow. And every child under the age of 8 would actually believe this. So he professed to be from Andromeda 14, and that eventually he would return home from the planet from which he came. True story. He was always awake early, very unlike me, and loved to shout, which I still torture my children with when I wake up earlier than them, which is rare. Uppy day, meaning get up and get going. And he had a couple of songs that went along with it. But Uppy day was something we heard about quite a bit. He had a unique ability to shake hands with small children for an extended period of time until they begged him to stop. And occasionally he did this with adults as well. And he knew that even through the worst of personal tragedies, and there were many in his life, including a very harsh home invasion robbery, that one must always climb back on the horse after getting knocked down and continue to move forward. He had unique eyebrows and a great sense of humor, both of which he passed on to my son Adrian. And he sports them with Grandpa Brad. He definitely had a passion for what he desired in life, and that continues to be embodied in my daughter Lisa. He had a love of politics, of debating the issues, of wagering opinions, and a love of people which I myself carried forward like many others in my